Okie dokie. We will now have a feature update. This is following the custom speeds settings. I'll show that again really quick, but I just kind of want to show that I put these rocks into the game. So all of the placeable objects looked a little bit. The nicest way to put it would be to be like kind of how paintball obstacles look. They don't look like real obstacles, but the imagery is not very deep space, if you know what I mean. It's all kind of like if you had an inflatable obstacle, then maybe you could imagine them like that. So, for example, I'll just switch to space mode here. I'll just kind of fly out into the open a little bit. So, previously, here you can see all these rocks cycling up in the corner. Previously, all the obstacles have been like this kind of thing here, where maybe you would inflate a balloon that looks like that, and that would be really good for a drone racing course in space because you could launch a balloon and it would be very lightweight. It would inflate with hardly any pressure. So actually, there's a fair bit of logic to using an inflatable obstacle in a drone racing course in space because it could be just really thin material, have barely any pressure in it to be fully inflated, and just very very lightweight, very low cost altogether. But um, and then some of my imagery here, this was free. That's the reason why this was in the game. It was a free asset on Unity Store. But I kind of like the kind of grittiness of the shipping container, and I just kind of enjoy that. So, continuing on, let me cycle through these 120 something objects that I now have in this thing, and I should do something about that. So, a couple of new things that I did put in the game. I had a few people download the game, and I was really thinking about the kind of person that might try this game out and the other games that are available. So, you can see my ship is quite small because I zoomed all the way out. So what I'm showing you here is there's actually quite a large ring. So my normal standard ring size is right here, and that's kind of what I've been going with for kind of a low speed, kind of a short range course. But I thought, some people would probably want a bit of ring variety in there, so I put some of these larger rings in there, and then the same kind of ring. I put a smaller one. Let me get a little closer here so you can see the real difference. So they look a little bit different, but there's these two new sizes of ring in there. And then it goes to that. That's the one size here. I'll put another example here. Oh, I'm stuck. And then there's a few other options in the catalog. This one is kind of a drone racing one. You can kind of see how big that one is. This one is like a bigger drone racing one, but it's kind of supposed to be standing up. But I put it in there anyways. I thought that might be fun. And then these right here are just some flags. Here, this ring is like this big right here. These ones, just so you can see the size. I'll get through some of these obstacles. Here's a good, kind of a larger one from back in the day. That's what a larger one used to look like. This is another example of what a larger one used to look like. So you can see that most of my rings were kind of on the smaller side, kind of aimed at kind of a lower performance, kind of this normal speed. But as I was saying, I just put in this new system where you can change your power settings and you can actually go quite a bit faster. Let me show. So once you get going quite a bit faster, well, if you want to do something like fly all the way around the space station at kind of a high speed like this, then what ends up happening is you just kind of it's hard to punch through a small ring. So if you want to build a faster and faster course where it's just kind of easy and fast and loose, now there's a handful of larger ring options in the game. But along with that is being a cycle here. I know it takes a long time to cycle, but an inventory system is something that I would rather have than this cycling method, but it's just something that I'm going to have to work on as it gets a little easier for me. So here we have, oh, see, I crashed into it because I was still moving. I put in some of these big rocks that you can place. And then as you can kind of see here, you got a bunch of shadows going on. And then actually on one side of this thing it's kind of dark. So I went ahead and I put a headlight on there. So now if you do kind of need to, and the headlight works in both modes, so that if you want to kind of be flying around and you can't see, then there's a headlight. So moving on to show off some of these rocks, I have basically, let me get to kind of one end of it. Alright, so these are the smaller ones. So here you can see the space shuttle right there. And so here's a rock, and it's like a smaller one right there. And you can still connect up to it just like you can with anything else. Oh, my speed is like outrageous. I wonder what happened. Let me turn it back down to what I'm used to. I'll just reset to default. Save it so that it takes effect without me having to toggle around. So now I can connect up to these rocks and move these around, but that does get to be a little bit of a problem when they start to get a little bigger. So here's another one. Yeah, so these ones appear right in front of you, so you do kind of get smashed up. That one's a little bit bigger. So they start to get quite a bit bigger, actually. Is my headlight still on? There we go. So you can put a bunch of these bigger ones all right next to each other. Then you can end up with like some places to fly between once you get into the drone. And then you can use that to kind of make tunnels if you want to out in outer space. And then you might actually find that that flashlight is useful, the headlight. Let me just try to get through these bigger ones, just so you can kind of see the kind of scale I got going on here. So there's actually 5 shapes and 2 different sizes of each. But you have a nice mesh renderer here, so you can get right in. You can put your hoops in there, and you can end up with kind of a valley effect. And then of course you can place multiple rocks all next to each other, and then you can kind of get more of a traditional space game imagery going on. And there's a little landing pad. I threw that in the space drone. So that's the primary purpose of this video, is to kind of show off these rocks. And then once again, here we got this power settings. That's actually, I made a video about that already, but you can set up, you have 5 different, very easy, low, normal, high, and very high. And if you click reset, it'll reset them back to default. But of course, you don't have to use this to be your easy one. You can make different settings for, warp mode for when you're building your setup, and other settings for when you want to have different speeds for your racing drone. And then another thing you might want to have is, you might want to have, some parts of the course you might want to fly really fast and you want more power. And then other parts of the course you might want to dock. So you might want more precision when you're trying to dock to something, so you want to crank it down for when you want to dock. And then again, the feature that I did put in there for making it a little easier to dock is half rotation, and double rotation is when you're docked to a weight, you can go a little faster. So I probably won't play with those myself. I'll probably try to drive my weights around on just without it. But if you wanted it, it's in there, and then you don't have to make a special whole power setting just to have a weight connected or to try to dock. You could just use that half rotation or double rotation toggle. All of these things are not necessarily something that is supposed to be part of gameplay. It's just kind of, well, some people, when they imagine what they would be wanting out of a flying experience, it's kind of an option to just be available. So when you switch to space mode, I don't know if this needs to be said, of course you move quite a bit faster, but actually the difficulty setting, so in space mode there's an automatic multiplier. It uses the same, so if you turn it up, it still turns up space mode, but space mode has like a separate multiplier behind the scenes. So you can't really turn up one space mode and then have it be the same as normal. You can't. There's no separate normal space mode setting. You just have to make a different difficulty setting if you want this to go quite a bit faster. And there's value in going quite a bit faster, especially in space mode, because if you want to build a large course and you want to work on this part over here, and then you can turn it down and get your good, and then you want to go, oh, I need to work over here, and then you can turn it down, and then you can kind of work on it, and then put the only thing I don't have that, yeah, it's nice you can move around really fast, but once you get there, you're going to be toggling the next ring button a lot to get through 100 different possible placeable objects, but it's something I'll have to work on, but I don't really know how I'm going to go about it just yet. I'm kind of thinking something kind of like a rings in one place, or maybe one or two different categories of rings, and maybe 3 different windows or something like that you can switch between, like any normal inventory system. I don't know. I'm sure it can't be terribly impossible to implement it, but I think it'd be kind of a lot of work, and I would have to learn everything, the whole entire thing. I'd have to learn it all from scratch. So I just don't really know what I'll do. I guess I better. This will be kind of a play test at the same time. But so then again, same situation going on here. These courses for the Rockhopper are a little bit smaller, these arenas. The Rockhopper is supposed to kind of, the way I have it set up, it should be moving a little bit slower. I wish I could have bigger ones, but I don't really know what to do. Like, this one's already causing me frame rate issues. I just have to learn a lot more about terrain. Terrain in general is kind of this whole thing. But once again, I do have these these rocks. They're all the same rocks, but everything in the Rockhopper is a little bit different of a size. So these ones pop out underneath you. And then of course those hoops, they're a little bit different of a size as well. Hey. Hey. Oh, how did I get stuck here? Ah, that's the end of this. So you see there, I hit the edge of the world right there. So you're kind of limited on the edge of the world. So you might be thinking, why would I want all of these different hoops? What is the purpose of having so many options for hoops? Well, I think that it's nice. You can have the same course can have different colors around it, and then that will help you distinguish when the different parts of the course cross against each other, or you can just kind of make it look different. One thing about kind of flying around in an environment is you like to have different environments, and actually you're spending your whole entire time right next to the hoop. So what could you do to better change your environment than change the color scheme of whatever it is that is always the most in your camera, right? So by having different hoops, I mean, you can have all kinds of hoops, and then you're going through them, and they're all different colors, and that's the main thing you see the whole time anyway. So the purpose of all the hoops is, that you can have some nice scenery. You can build interesting courses, and then of course you have these large objects that you can place to build around. So one thing I may do is make an open space level for the Rockhopper where you just have one little platform and there's no ground. And then, between these placeable asteroids and all the hoops and platforms that you can put down, you can make your own little place where, there's no bottom. But it'd be kind of like this one thing, kind of like Dragon's Lair, a little something like that. So, anyways, it's kind of a feature update. I'm just mostly showing off these rocks and the headlight that works also in the rock hopper, just in case it gets a little dark, which it does kind of do sometimes when you're trying to see what's going on, especially when you're using the builder mode. And then I also kind of did want to show, I've got the standard hoop size, but maybe people want to turn their power up and then they think that hoop it's a little bit small. So I did put in some of these larger hoops, especially with the space drone. Alright, that will be all for now. Thank you very much.